There is a lot in the news for a Friday, which happens to be the most mysterious day for news indeed. And we've learned that Dalia Blass, previously a lawyer for the Winklevoss Bitcoin ETF, has been named as the director of the Division of Investment Management at the US SEC. So what does it mean that the Bitcoin-friendly lawyer who advised on the Twins ETF is now a regulator at the SEC? And what does her exact position entail? And with the Bitcoin BTC price reaching as high as around $5,000 and now falling to as low as $4,500, it reminds us of the great Bitcoin crash of 2013. Let's review all of this and more, and let's discuss. Hey everybody, I'm Gary Palmer Jr., you're you, and together, welcome to Minting Coins. So there is a lot going on in the news, there's a lot going on in the world of Bitcoin for a Friday, for a Saturday, and with everything else that's been happening. I think that the general pulse of the Bitcoin and blockchain industry is that there is just a correction or a crash of some sort coming, and it may be more significant than the $5,000 or the $500 price fall that we just saw last night. But with that being said, in the news that we're going to be talking about in just a little bit here, the SEC director who has been named as a director of this division of the SEC is a perfect person in a perfect position who can really blow up Bitcoin and blow up digital assets inside the traditional investment world in ways that the United States and the world has greatly anticipated, which had affected the increases and decreases of the volatility of Bitcoin back in the springtime when the initial decision was being made on the Winklevoss ETF, and in addition the repeal to that decision as well. And who was the lawyer that was advising them? It was Dalia Blass, who is now in this position. So with that being said, there's a lot of angst with the Bitcoin price fall. Let's talk about that. Let's look at the market. Let's look at the news, and let's discuss. So very quickly, looking at where we're at coinmarketcap.com, we have 866 different currencies out there for a total market capitalization of $161 billion. This is probably $1 billion more than we talked about last, but in between our last two videos, we increased and decreased, billions and billions of dollars. And in the past 24 hours, relatively speaking, a lot of trading volume, over $9.2 billion, and the Bitcoin dominance has actually increased back up to 46%. So as we're going over these videos, if you're following along with this on a daily basis and you're seeing the incremental increase in the currencies, the market cap, and the Bitcoin dominance, this is helping us understand not just what these numbers mean today, in this moment, but we're understanding the relationship of these numbers as they move forward over time. So Bitcoin specifically, the market cap is currently sitting around $74.8 billion with the current price over $4,500. And so we had a drop of nearly $450 in between sometime last night and sometime right now. This has dropped the price pretty significantly. When you're talking about these very high numbers, the price has dropped 6%, almost 6%, 5.25%. It's still a lot, but really almost everything has fallen. We have a nearly 12% falling for Ether. We have Ripple falling 11%. A lot, Dash falling relatively recently, not too long ago, 12%. There's just a lot of money that exited the market today, and so a lot of people may be worried, a lot of people may be scared, especially if people are new to this industry. And let's just take a look at Litecoin real quick. So let's look at this. So when we're trading for dollars, we're trading for Bitcoin. Litecoin is down 4.38%. in the past 24 hours, but when we're looking at that Litecoin price in terms of Bitcoin, we've actually increased 1% as everything else has decreased. 1% isn't a lot, but 0% is a lot when you're comparing it to -13, I suppose. All right. So this is how everyone might be feeling today. And this is what a lot of people were expecting, just too much money coming into Bitcoin too quickly. We know there's lots of ups, and we were really feeling the pressure and the excitement and the exhilaration of the Bitcoin price reaching that $5,000 point or just near it, depending on which exchange you're using and when you're looking. But this is, $500 free fall. If you were expecting it, it's a lot easier to take in. And if you're expecting it, it's a lot easier to know what to do, or at least what a lot of people are saying that they're doing for themselves. And when everyone understands this and everyone takes these actions together, and we're all holding together, and we're all holding a line, we're all holding what we perceive to be the value and the future potential, especially with our understanding of the Bitcoin and blockchain technology, the deflationary aspects, the limitations of it, the increasing demand, not just from people across the world, but corporations, banks, governments, and just lots of movements at play here. And so this was funny. This was a meme that I actually saw last week, and so I just thought it would be funny to bring it up today because people were really waiting. This was, when was this posted? It says 23 hours ago now, but it was actually a while back before. And so a lot of people, so it was a day ago, so it was the day previous before the drop, people were just waiting for Bitcoin to drop, and it just seemed like there was no end in sight with the Bitcoin's increase. And people were just waiting because once that price falls, they know it's going to fall. That's when they want to jump in for their dollar cost averaging. And so, people have been talking about Bitcoin since 2009, since 2010, and a lot of people have been talking about its death and its demise, and we just need to understand with fiat and with Bitcoin, with fiat is good for buying whatever you want because it can print you can print as much as you want it. So it can be used to influence politicians, influence corporations, influence people. It can be used to create inflation and hyperinflation. Both are diminishing the value if you have fiat. It's good for funding wars with its endless supply. It's good for bailouts. And so this poster is saying, join the resistance for the revolution by Bitcoin. And so I'm talking about this a lot. And I thought this was funny. Whenever I talk about Bitcoin, you might relate to this. This is how it might feel for when you talk about Bitcoin. What's there? But your kids are going to love it. I guess you guys aren't ready for that yet. Just some people aren't ready to hear it, to understand it. They're not ready to understand that fiat is good for buying votes and influencing people. It creates inflation. It is facilitating wars across the world. And fiat is also facilitating bailouts in the existing banking system across the world. So I hope that you're ready to hear this and, continue letting people in your life know about Bitcoin and blockchain technology so they can get information from you who may have a better understanding of what's going on and not necessarily trust what they're reading from a lot of these leading magazines. And so we talked about this before, but again, there's never going to be more than 21 million Bitcoins ever in existence, and it's going to become increasingly more difficult to buy just one, as tweeted out here by Charlie Shrem. And he's mentioning here that anything below $100,000 per Bitcoin is cheap. So people saw Bitcoin at $1 and they thought it was too much. They saw it at $10, they thought it was too much. $100, $1,000, $5,000. And when is it going to be at the point when people are seeing Bitcoin at 7,000 or 10,000 and they're just wishing that they could have got a single Bitcoin at the $5,000 price, or a quarter bit at $1,250, or whatever the case may be. Charlie Shrem is saying anything below $100,000 is going to be cheap. And there's actually less than 21 million because a lot of people have lost their keys. A lot of this A lot of people have lost their Bitcoins, and so there's definitely less than 21 million, and not everyone is going to be able to even live long enough to see that 20 million. There's only about 16.5 million right now. So in actuality, there's less than 16.5 million Bitcoins right now, and it's going to become increasingly difficult for anybody to have even one. So what are you shooting for? What's your goal? Are you shooting to get just one, or a half, or you want to own, 1/1,000,000th of all the Bitcoin that ever existed? That'd be a lot. I wish I owned even close to that much. Yeah, it's becoming increasingly more difficult. 350 million people in America, 7.5 billion people in the world. Good thing Bitcoin is divisible by up to 8 decimal points. And so there's not everyone that wants to hear about Bitcoin, and not everyone understands the risks in the current monetary systems that we live in. But there is this one article from the Los Angeles Times. And so I just wanted to kick this up and bring this to your attention. This was kicked up on Reddit. And so this article was written by someone who probably has no idea, no understanding of Bitcoin and cryptocurrency, just like a lot of the people who are writing about Bitcoin and cryptocurrency for mainstream media outlets. And so this was talking about the Bitcoin crash of 2013 and asking people, don't they feel silly that they bought into such a strange and crazy idea of Bitcoin? And so so this article goes on to say, by Michael Hilzik, people who thought that Bitcoin could serve as either an investment vehicle or as an alternative world currency got their heads handed to them on Thursday and Friday. That's when the Bitcoin price of the attention-grabbing cryptocurrency got crushed from a quoted $1,200 per coin to less than $600. And at the time of this writing, there was a bounce. Some people might have called it a dead cat bounce of $830 that it increased to. And so there's this whiplash that people recall, and we know that the Bitcoin price eventually had decreased as low as $400. And so for some time, people were able to point to this and talk about this and make people feel silly or dumb because they believed in this technology. This article gives a lot of, bad information. It does balance it a little bit at the very end. It talks about this Boston University economist Lawrence Kotlikoff, who wrote, anyone familiar with the current U.S. monetary policy might well wonder whether our country would be better served with Bitcoin replacing the dollars. So the commentary from the author is, you can stop wondering. The answer is no, when I think we are all very well aware that maybe the country would be better served with Bitcoin. Maybe Bitcoin would help make it more difficult for power to be consolidated and for influence to be affecting everybody instead of just a few. Maybe Bitcoin would be better than fiat, because then it would create deflation instead of inflation or even hyperinflation. It'd be more difficult to fund wars. Bailouts would not even exist. But again, a lot of people aren't ready to hear this. A lot of people aren't ready to understand that there's only going to be 21 million Bitcoins. And a lot of people, do understand U.S. monetary policy. And a lot of people, do understand that Bitcoin does provide a lot of value and a lot of potential. And there's still, even not just in 2013, but all the way into 2017 and beyond, a lot of people who are going to be saying that Bitcoin is not the answer. Well, a lot of people do think Bitcoin is the answer. And turning into today's news and what we wanted to highlight from today, the SEC tweeted out and posted online that the SEC has named Dalia Blass as the director of the Division of Investment Management. The Division of Investment Management. What is that at the SEC? Is that a lowly sort of just non-important division, or is investment management a very important division? And does this have anything to do with Bitcoin? What does Dalia Blass have to do with Bitcoin? Well, we talked about that earlier over here at Cointelegraph. Dalia Blass worked at Ropes and Gray Law Firm, and she was the lawyer who represented the Winklevoss twins' effort to create the Bitcoin ETF. And so now Dalia Blass is going to be heading the SEC's Division of Investment Management. And so what does the Division of Investment Management do at the SEC? Well, the Division of Investment Management at the SEC regulates and approves or disapproves exchange-traded funds, otherwise known as ETFs. So how amazing is this that the lawyer who advised the Winklevoss ETF and was denied twice the Winklevoss ETF is now the director, the person responsible for approving and disapproving these different ETFs. What's going to happen if and when the Winklevoss ETF comes up? Not even getting into the conflict of interest, just her deeper understanding of the advantages and the possibilities. So the SEC did previously reject the Winklevoss ETF, but they did leave wiggle room to open it up for approval in the future. And so the SEC did state that in the event that a regulated futures market for Bitcoin were developed, that the SEC may reconsider approving the Winklevoss Bitcoin ETF and these ETFs, these Bitcoin ETFs in general. And the general question now that I have, that I bet a lot of people have, is with Blass at the helm and regulated futures and markets being developed by banks, startups, different Bitcoin blockchain companies, people in the industry, are we going to get to a point much sooner than later that we are going to actually see these Bitcoin ETFs, and with these new ETFs opening up Bitcoin to the 401ks of potentially hundreds and hundreds of millions of Americans across the world? So this is Dalia Blass, and she has a very, very impressive CV with work not just as Ropes and Gray lawyer counsel over there, but working with the U.S. Securities and Exchange Commission. And I bet that she is very, very excited to go back to the SEC and join her colleagues over there. Graduate of Columbia University School of Law. Just a very amazing resume, a very qualified, highly qualified individual. And this is just super exciting what this means for Bitcoin. This is super exciting what this means for the community. This is super exciting what this means for the investment opportunities, for the value of people being able to get into Bitcoin without necessarily having to hold their private keys. Because a lot of people out there might say people need to have their private keys, they got to hold their private keys, and it's important that everyone is responsible for their own bank, being their own bank. But allowing them to get into Bitcoin in the form of the ETF and seeing the returns that they're going to receive in their 401k in the Bitcoin section of their portfolio, it's going to possibly make them think about investing into Bitcoin directly, and then having possession of their own private keys, holding those in something like a Trezor or a Keep Key or a Ledger Nano S. And it's very, very exciting. We're going to be paying attention to see what the moves are for the next ETF that's going to be introduced. We're guessing that's going to happen quite soon. And we're going to see how that affects with the Bitcoin price, knowing that we could still come in for a correction, and this whole cryptocurrency market can take a deep dive, or there could be some sort of other event, the black swan in either direction, and then Bitcoin could moon when we least expect. So with that being said, I would love it if you could share your thoughts in the comments below, your thoughts, your questions, your comments, and there, and we can keep that conversation going. Tap that like button if this video helped you, or if you enjoyed this content. It really encourages us and also helps other people find this information. And follow us on SteemIt, upvote us over there. Help us share more information in this decentralized world of Bitcoin and blockchain technology and all the exciting things here to come. So until then, and until that, I'm glad that together we're minting coins.